You say we are free. I need a list to give you more, you better. It's it all. You say we are free. I need a list about your more, you was gone. Ayan, Jana Junubi Ayan. Mafi Gurus, Kisim Giwasha Shedi. Oh, Gian. Jana Junubi Jian, it was to be late, Omakulu Elefatur. Anataban, since 2011, Ladiasa, same level today. Anataban, 21 years, fighting freedom, and we are fighting ourselves today. No one is safe on Emily Road. No one is safe on Juba to Terekeke Road. Oh. Dead bodies recovered on the river Nice. Only God knows when the killers will be found. Oh no. Land grabbers everywhere, the youth are dying on the streets. We were finished from the bullets of the unknown gunmen and cattle raiders. Ayan, Jana Junubi Ayan. Mafi Gurus, Kisim Giwasha Shedi. Oh, Gian, Jana Junubi Gian. It was to be late, Omakulu Elefatur. Anataban, since 2011, Ladiasa, same level today. Anataban, 21 years, fighting for freedom, and we are fighting ourselves today. No, if this time for everything, where it's time for our peace. Oh Lord, if this time for everything, where it's time for our peace. We prayed for this country. Oh, school fees, and I'm a bit on the soon. My dad is at Tacoma, the university Tacoma. Omon, bigger garden. Yeah, the promise of free education by Dr. John is gone. Anataban, City Shur, Mavi May Alleges Shabi. Oh, Wanataban, Sabashur, Mavi May Alle Usasa Sukur. Oh, Anataban, since 2011, same level today. It's Malcolm. You say we are free. I need a list to give you more, you better. It's it all. You say we are free. I need a list about your more, you was gone. Ayan, Jana Junubi Ayan. Mafi Gurus, Kisim Giwasha Shedi. Oh, Gian, Jana Junubi Gian. It was to be.
Okay, welcome everybody. Happy Sunday. Happy Palm Sunday. Is the Palm Sunday today, and I hope you guys will be having a wonderful Easter next Friday. And also too, for those of you who are watching in Facebook and YouTube and Clubhouse, please start sharing the video. And for those of you in Clubhouse, pin everybody in. Let me welcome my guests, regular guests. We having a show every Friday or weekend to talk about the affair of our country. Let me welcome our brother Imuniakani. Welcome. I hope. How are you doing, sir? Are you staying war a call. I heard that it's very hot in Juba. So how is the weather now? How are people doing?
First, as you said, happy Palm Sunday to everyone, wherever they are, as they're listening to us. Juba is hot. The heat waves are really very high here. People are all around the river, so the river become very important. People are just hanging around the river and where there's cold airs, either in vehicles or in offices where there's ACs or houses where there's ACs. So it's really hot, but of course we are used to it. But this time round is really abnormal. I have to be honest, it's abnormal. That I've never experienced such heat waves before. So it's really terrible. And sometimes in the midnight comes rain, very short, not long, can't cool the weather, but that's how it is. But also politically, it is hot. The political waves is also getting hot in the sense of the dilemma around the elections, whether to be hold or not. A lot of rumors going around, a lot of fake news moving around, a lot of disinformation, misinformation going around. So yeah, it is tense, but we are engaging, we are trying, and as we go on with the conversation, I will share some of the ideas we have.
Thank you, thank you. Yeah, for those of you who watching in South Sudan, please make sure that stay hydrated, drink a lot of water, do not go outside until evening time when the weather is cool down. Yes, as it is hot in Juba, according to the about the election and the politician politics is really is going on. We watching, we follow very quickly what is going on in the country. While the country is prepared for election this coming December. So, Inmun, can you give us how the party, how the government, how the people of South Sudan are prepared for the upcoming election of 2024?
Thank you very much. First, from our angle as a civil society, we hold a civil society forum for the last 2 days, that is Wednesday and Thursday, and we are able to come out with quite a number of resolutions which will come out. And with the political parties, they have a very contradictory statements and confrontational statements that we have seen, and specifically between the SPLM-IO and the SPLM, there's a very controversial proposals coming out, and a lot of rumors of secret negotiations, secret plans is going on. So in general, people all are convinced that time is running out. As I say, time is running out. All the necessity that are required within this limit of time to ensure that there was a created conducive environment for the conduct of the elections. Legally, operationally, and financially, everybody's convinced the time is not enough. That is something that is common on the ground, that people believe time is not enough now. But the majority of the citizens that speak now are still demanding they need elections because they believe without an elected government, they can't hold the government accountable. But also they believe even how much you give this current incumbent government long period with the experience of deficit in trust and confidence witnessed in the last 5 years, they are not going to deliver. But the dilemma is that also people are saying you can't sort of like uphold the current government anyhow if you don't engage in an honorable and non-violent and peaceful way. So based on this, almost all across the corners, there are calls for inclusive political dialogue. And the call for political inclusive dialogue is now the common agenda. Civil society have called for it. All political parties have called for it. Now SPLM also have called for it through the statement here from Michael McQuay. SPLM-IO have called for it, but SPLM-IO have added they need an external mediator to help in pursuing the dialogue during the political parties' dialogue and reaching some consensus. So somehow the debate right now on the ground in terms of the preparation is that time is running out. As we speak, time is running out. We're getting credible information. The National Election Commission may get their money soon. Up to now, as we speak, they have not got their money. So that means a personalization of the National Electoral Commission per their mandate is behind schedule in terms of head office in Juba being well equipped, and then they establishing state offices in the 10 states and administrative areas. But also they moving forward in terms of civic and voter education, they need to really speed up. In terms of their internal arrangement, they need to speed up. So all these mounted to aspects that demonstrate the delay for the elections is something that is risky and is something that is real. and it's something that people need not remain quiet about it. People have to talk about it. But also it's something that questions the political commitment of the top political leadership if they really wish to hold election by December 2024. So that is the environment we're in now. There are quite a number of proposals that I'd like to share with the audience. There are proposals that came out from SPLM, and specifically it was a letter officially written by the SPLM secretary, where they say because of limitation in financial capability, they may go with executive, they propose that the countries will go with executive elections and delay the legislatives for 1 year. First, the word delay automatically means the extension of 1 more year, that SPLM is calling for it. But we are a bit keen that if we are to go only with executive elections and you don't go with legislative at a state level, that may be a good recipe for the country returning back to violence. Imagine in all the 10 states and the 3 administrative area, there's no any electable position except the seat of the governor. That is going to raise tension among the parties over that seat. That's going to raise tension among the political elites of that particular state, whether they belong to the parties or they are affiliates of communities that the communities rally behind it. So there's no any fallback position to balance and to create opportunities that if somebody is not ready to attempt to see for the seat of the governor, then he may attempt as a seat of state parliament or national parliament. And that's what we're advising. I got a chance to be called because of our too much advocacy by His Excellency President. And my take for President is that it's a disaster. And secondly, there's legal implications. If you only go with state executive elections without legislative, the immediate examples I can give is that regionally, we may lose our representation in East African community. Why? Because the condition of East African community is that a member state must have a functional parliament. So if once we don't have a functional parliament after the end of the transitional period, as required by the agreement, East African community may raise a motion and suspend our legislative participation. It means our MPs in East African parliament may lose their legitimacy and that will come back home. That is one implications. Even within the function of the government, you can't operate with the government that one wing is a legitimate elected and one wing is not legitimate elected and their mandate expires. So that is going to cause havoc if you're to go only with executive minus legislative. So we're able to communicate to the leadership of the country that, look here, you need to go for both of them. Another area, which is of course as area of intent, is that SPLM-IO maintain their position of preconditions must be delivered, what we term as prerequisite for the elections must be delivered. Constitution must be delivered, unification of forces must be delivered, open civic and political space for all actors must be delivered, among others, refugees and IDPs return. In all, the meetings that I've attended to, and the meetings that I attended to with the political parties, different political parties after my return from US, and the meetings I hold with religious leaders and some diplomatic community in country, there's a consensus that you can't compromise with the unification of the army. You need to go for elections with one unified neutral army. And also you need to go for elections, you know the system of governance and the rule of governing. And that's why the Constitution is becoming a very important. But the Constitution, there's a proposals of compromise. Among the proposals of compromise on the Constitution is constitutional declaration for the elected government. So that means the elected government first mandate will be working on the Constitution because I'm a member of the National Constitutional Review Commission. Our action plan requires us to have 18 months in order to have what we call citizen-driven constitution. And those 18 months are the one used by SPLM-IO as a demand for an extension of the transitional period because we have 18 months and then we have given extra 6 months back 24. So that is what's been justified by the SPLM-IO as a new call for extension of the transitional period for the period of 24 months, which should be like 2 more years that they want to see as an extension of the transitional period. So they use our calendar, and remember, the leadership is under SPLM-IO, but of course we operate in the commission without any affiliation to any political party. We remain as members of the Constitutional Review Commission that we belong to South Sudan, don't belong to any party. So, or the members that comes from the party have lost their party affiliations. They have to adhere to the principle of really affiliating to the country. So that is the environment we're in. But there's this controversial debate around population census. And I want to share with the audience. After I came back from US, I did a bit of a really field work, more of scientific work. Now, and I would really wish the audience to listen, and I want to hear from the audience their opinion. This is my personal opinion. After I did a bit of literature review of similar situations in other parts of the world, like our country, I come to realize that if we precondition population census to be a principle for demarcating new geographical constituency, or what is called delimitation of new geographical constituency, these are the following implications. I'll bring positive implications and negative implication. Positive implication is that by nature of practice, you need to really know the population in order to do delimitation of constituencies. That's the positive side of it, that always is a practice. But of course, this needs an early preparation. And so many population census that I have undergone literature review at least takes 2 years. Almost 6 months planning, 6 months of personalization, 1 year finishing up the population census. And these are in a country where they have a state institution on population census that is functional before the day of declaration of the population census, not like our National Census Bureau or Statistic Bureau that is not in existence until now, but they need to roll out populations. And that's why Honorable Agustino Teng is demanding that at least 2 years is enough for them to do proper work, but that is when they are resourced, when they're given money. Now, my field work, I come to discover the following negative implications on connecting population census to elections. And I would like to really speak slowly so that the audience get me right, and I want to hear the opinion. If we're to go for population census now with an idea that we need it to be a prerequisite for election, then before the population census, we need to have an immediate effective repatriation of IDPs and refugees to their area of origin in order to generate numbers for claiming geographical constituencies. Otherwise, the opposite is the real. What is the opposite? The opposite that right now, if you go for population census and you have not repatriated IDPs and refugees, likelihood of the region of Upper Nile losing over 5 seats from the national parliament or more because of the less population they have on the ground is very high. And likelihood of Juba County and Juba City within Central Equatorial State obtaining more than other extra 9 seats in the national parliament is very high because of the population that are around Juba County and Juba City. And that means Central Equatoria become the dominant of the size of the national parliament because of the population that it hosts around Juba and around some areas, and then maybe Eastern Equatoria because of the Nimule Triangle. Then that you will have those numbers. But remember, for you to reverse this, it requires at least another 1 term of office or 2 terms of office. That means after 5 years or 10 years, you can reverse this. So it have consequences. So when I spoke to some citizens from Upper Nile, they said, but why do you want to do population census in a manner that reduces our share from the national cake? Now, let's bring the element of IDPs and refugees repatriation. Remember, repatriation of IDPs and refugees is not compulsory. Neither government, neither either of the parties in the Revitalization Agreement will force refugees and IDPs to return. Return of IDPs and refugees is supposed to be voluntary. Now, if the voluntary decision of IDPs and refugees to return back home requires 10 years, should we delay election for 10 years? That's a science. That's a scientific. That's evidence. So it means the argument around population census does not really, yes, is important. Yes, by ideal, it is essential. But by the facts of reality right now, you can't justify it because Even these population in the POCs in Juba, you can't force them to go to their areas of origin because they need safety and security, and they need to get convinced that if they go back home, they will find their safety and security as the same way they're living in Juba. So you can't force them. It's against international law if you force refugees and IDPs compulsory. It has to be voluntary. But also remember, in most of the communities in Upper Nile, where we have a huge displacement of population, the deadly communal violence is almost a business of a daily action that is taking place. Are they ready to return in the face of those deadly communal violence that's happening in the communities? So these are factors that justify the population census. So by summary, question of unified army, question of reaching a certain arrangement for constitution, because constitution is very important, in the sense you to elect a government that it have a constitutional reform, because with that constitutional reform, chances are very high that you may sort of like reinstate the previous system of governance that must have taken the country to war. So you need to reach certain arrangement for constitution. So these are strong prerequisites that stand out: the security and then the constitution. They're really strong. But of course, the others, like the issue of funding, is a government responsibility. Government has to fund. And remember, with the situation in Sudan, we're losing a lot of access to revenue from the oil. And it's going to take time, as Sudan have said, they can't guarantee the smooth flow of our oil to the international market because of the crisis in Sudan. That's going to affect us, so we're going to depend too much on the non-oil revenue. And remember, internationally, the position from international community members that they can't fund the elections until the government show its commitment towards elections. Now, the question of open political and civic space, we released a report today. Okay, we released a report yesterday where we have documented 9 violations of civic and political space. And out of the 9 violations, 5 are subject for confrontation between SPLM and SPLM-IO. And I'll give you the latest example. The latest example is an incident happened in Jonglei State. SPLM went to an event, a rally, in Nirol, in Lankan town. They did the rally. They ended in confrontation with the SPLA-IO army. Their t-shirts were banned. And that was in a response of where SPLM-IO have a delegation that is supposed to go to Twitch East County. They were obstructed by the commissioner not to go. And that's why in retaliation, they banned t-shirts. So the interpretation of open civic and political space by the SPLM-IO and by the SPLM is almost equal. The interpretation is that where it is our constituency, you, our opponent, don't come and perform here, but allow us to perform in your constituency. So it's sort of like tick for tack. That's issues that we have registered. We have registered incident where journalists, out of the 9 cases, we have 2 cases for media. One case is the president of the Union of South Sudanese journalists, UJO's president, Patrick Oyed. One time his ID card was confiscated, but later on it was returned back to him because of the security people who are ignorant, not knowing who is Oyed as a president of the Union of Journalists for South Sudan, at the same time as a reporter of Chinese TV, CGTN. Another one is an incident of surveillance. There's an increase in surveillance with vehicles that are numberless around radio stations like community radio stations, iRadio, and other radio stations, and some organization of civil society and some newspapers who have seen presence of vehicles with a number plate, and then like what to force themselves into the compound of that or office of that media house or civil society organization. We have registered that. So the violations of civic and political space, the political actors have a bigger share of constituting the perpetrators, and mainly SPLM-IO and the SPLM. So the interpretation of civic and political space, that is it. And we have seen this also in locations where there's a bit of a problem, that they couldn't do it in a manner that both have equal share of responsibility. For instance, where either the governor is SPLM or the deputy is IO, or the governor is IO and the deputy is SPLM. There's a tensions among those elites. So those are some of the incidents that we have seen. And the latest is what happened to the bodyguards of the governor of Western Equatorial State, Alfred Futuyo, where his bodyguards were attacked on their way between Tombra and Yambio, and we are worried that that is another beginning of indicators of a fallback position back to violence. And if you pick the situation of of Western Equatoria, you mix it up with Upper Nile, you mix it up with what's happening in Jongole, you add what is going on in Northern Baragazal, there's a likelihood that the indicators that potential violence at states level during the election is very high. It is evidently proved by these incidences. So that is what we need to do. So where are we in terms of way forward with this context? We are now engaging one, pushing the political leaders of the country to declare open a political space, because this is done before during the national dialogue by the president. So we've been pushing the leadership of the country that they should do that to make sure every political actor and every civil actor and media have open and unrestricted space to engage on civic and voter education. Because if we want to go for campaign, then political parties have equal campaign. We have been pushing the funding to be prioritized quickly so that at least people are getting there. We also have been advocating for reduction of registration fees for political parties. My brother, political parties have to register with 75,000 US dollars, 50,000 registration provisionally, 25,000 to confirm. And I know that few coalition of political parties like COP, SOA, and I think others are petitioning the government over that high level of fees of registration of 50,000. So let's see how the petition is going to be, because the petition next week, actually, which is tomorrow, the petition in the leadership of the country and the leadership of the political parties council to reduce those fees, because those fees hinder growth of democracy. So I will end up here. That is the level where we are, but I will share also some other way forward later on what we think. As I speak to you with you now, likely tomorrow I'm traveling to Nairobi to mobilize the churches at the level of Africa, at the level of the region, and some few political elites to come and help us nurture a dialogue among our political leaders as a third party, because we believe the political party dialogue, which is now the top agenda of the day, that we need to hold it, everybody agree, including religious leaders, both Christians and Muslims, civil society, youth, women, political parties have called for an urgent holding of an inclusive political party dialogue so that we reach consensus on the pathway for the holding of the elections. So tomorrow I may be heading to Nairobi, and I hope that I can brief you also once I'm in Nairobi of my meetings with the religious institutions that are in Nairobi regional, and likely want to see some political leaders in Kenya to come into and want to take advantage of Raila Odinga contesting for the chair position of African Union, which is now an East African seat, to play a role in South Sudan to showcase, if he become the chairperson of African Commission, how can he set agenda of peace and security in the region? And South Sudan is an immediate neighbor. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ilmun. I would like you to explain more about, what is explain this to South Sudanese people who are watching right now, people who will watch later on, what is mean for executive order, because executive election, because have you mentioned the SPLM released their position on election a few days ago about that. They said the title is about the SPLM position toward the national election as providing for in the roadmap. And they said that we view the agreement was they listed the 6 that had been passed. So number 1 is about amendment of the employment of the Unified Forces Election Act, Political Party Act, Political Party Council, National Election Commission, and the National Constitution Review Commission. And also they talk about in the letter, the SPLM, that, as you mentioned before, when you say that the refugees who are staying in refugees and other are say PCO, their argument, they said that when we conducted the referendum at the time, we didn't wait. We didn't say that we need to put the election for referendum on hold until all the South Sudanese in refugees camp return back home. So their position said that they are going on with the election at that position. So what is mean? What is mean for executive if the SPLM has a ruling party taking executive election? So I'll explain that more to Sosoli. What is the meaning of an executive election? Does it mean that SPLM, whether the IO don't want to go for election or other like BPF or NDF don't want to go for election, the SPLM party go ahead with the election as they plan it? What that means, the South Sudanese, what that means executive election. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you very much. First, this idea is a narrow idea and it's a contradictory idea. I did a quick literature review across the globe and in the region to check whether there's a similar practices in some countries. It is the opposite. The common practice that exists and which is commissioned by constitution, the common practice that exists and commissioned by constitution is a constitutional arrangement, and it's the arrangement within the electoral law. While this one is contradictory in our electoral law, later I'll explain how the contradiction is. The common practice is that first oversight body will be established in establishment of any government. So in so many countries, that similar practice where you have separated types of elections is that first you elect legislative. So once legislative is elected, some countries in a period of 3 months or in a period of 4 months or in a period of 6 months, then you elect executive. It is quite number of, I've seen as a practice in some countries, but it is constitutionally commissioned and it is commissioned by the law. I've never come across an experience of where executive is brought forward and then legislative is delayed for 1 year. Why? Because legislative is an oversight. If you delay oversight board, the executive can mess up because there'll be no check and balance. It's supposed to check and balance to provide. So the board of check and balance come forward. Now, what SPLM was trying to justify is that because of resources, they want to go with the executive. So they believe that the legitimate government must exist through an executive organ. That's the meaning. That we are caught up with a lot of challenges. One of the challenges is that limited resources at hand. Second challenge is that the mandate of the government is coming to expire and the interest of extension is no longer there. And since also as a ruling party have pronounced no more extension, now they want to go with only executive elections. Now, if you look at executive elections concepts, it is in conflict with our constitution. It is in conflict with the provision of the National Electoral Act. The National Electoral Act have called for general election. It have not called for segmented election. And in terms of segmented election, the National Election Act have not said executive is the first segment of the elections with a delay of 1 year, then legislative comes later. No. Initially, our law have called for all elections, national general election. That's the principle of our elections, which it means we are supposed to go all even including local government level. But because of limited resources, we may go for states and national level. Now, what does this mean? This means we're going to go for this type of election. What is meant by executive election? Let me explain it clearly. Executive elections means you're only going to cast one vote at national level. That is the vote for the president only. It means the campaign is only for the president. And the truth of matter and the reality of matter is that there's no candidate that can come and defeat His Excellency President Salva. Whoever want to contest with him, it's the likelihood of that person winning against the president is a bit limited. So that means you only have one vote, that everybody vote for the president at national level. Now, when you go to the state also, at the state level, only one vote. The vote that go to state governor alone. No more votes. So in the 10 states, each citizen will vote only for governor. Then after 1 year, we will come now to vote for our national MPs. We'll come and vote now for our state MPs. Now, after 1 year, we're going to have how many votes? We're going to have vote for party list, vote for women list, vote for constituency to bring a national MP and to bring a state MP. Now, besides the legality, conflict in the law with the concept, conflict in the law with the provision of the Constitution, conflict in the law with the provision of the National Constitution Act, If you today go to the states level and you say all citizens of the states, you have only one seat of a governor, after 1 year, you'll come and vote again. First, besides the expensive process in terms of logistics, because it means you're going to set up logistics for only that vote. Then you have to destroy that logistics. You have to prepare another logistics for legislative. And the logistics is much more around ballot box. So why do you want to waste a ballot box to destroy the whole setups of buying new tent, again establishing new polling stations, and become problematic? And then legislative, the chance of them coming after 1 year is likelihood is very limited. That means you have to go to kangaroo system. You may decree parliamentarians and you reduce them, they're not elected. And that is one of the problem of why we are in conflict since 2013. So to avoid that. And now let's go to the states. Imagine in each single state, one particular governor have to contest. And remember, our political elites at state level, they are so competitive for the seat of the governor. First, as a parties, but also there are candidates in the states that they neither belong to any either of the party, but they are liked by the community so much. They are more preferable by the communities than the parties. What kind of tensions are we generating? But having state MPs will be better. And I wish it could have been a soft landing if we were to start with the legislative and then we say executive later. Maybe somewhere there you can win, though is not legally accepted by our constitution and by our National Electoral Act 2013. So that's a crisis. But also, if you go for these elections, if there's any dispute, like the election will be taken to court. So this decision is not really a healthy decision. It has a lot of legalities. It has a lot of loopholes. And it offers an opportunity as a recipe for violence. It's a recipe for the election to be challenged in a court, and is likely to raise up the bar of aggression and intimidation, and that may translate into a fall back into violence, or the country may return back to violence. So that is the problem with this concept of the executive, and that's why people like us are advocating stop that. That one, likely you're going to generate more conflict that you may not control. And also that means what? That means the life of the staff of NEC, if you are to go only with the executive, need a high level of protection, because they are likely to be dealt with the candidates of the governors in terms of agencies. So for me, it's a bit problematic. And secondly, it's a new concept that I've never seen in my research that it exists somewhere. It may exist, but its interpretation or its legality is commissioned by constitution, is commissioned by the law. So that is a problem, my brother. And I don't think that idea is going to work. And if president did a mistake to accept that idea to go, actually even legitimacy of the president in terms of government, it will be under question. He will be an elected president with a non-elected speaker in both houses, in the parliament, in the council of states, and whom legally they don't have any mandate to exist. And that may have international reputation as parliamentary practice is concerned, and that even it may go as further as fixing the country not to interact in terms of borrowing from certain financial institutions, which those financial institutions question of how dare can we give you money? You are an elected executive with a non-existing legislative. Where is the oversight role? Remember, all financial borrowings, if it's to do in a genuine manner, the role of Public Accounts Committee in the Parliament, the role of anti-corruption, the role of general auditor is very important in assuring those who will lend you the money that this money is going to be used for the best interest of the citizens. So likely also, it may obstruct certain financial gains that we may need to go to a financial institution globally to borrow. These are few, but there's a lot of implications over that, as I've mentioned in the beginning. So this concept of executive election, that we only elect president and we only elect governor, is not a healthy idea.
Thank you, Edmund. Actually, let us stick to this. This is very important because this will be unique, because the current government right now, Adigono government, the president have vice president, 5 vice president. So if the executive election take place, who will be is running it? That will be question. Because if SPLM party take that decision, say that okay, the election will take place and it will be executive election. What about the rest of four vice president? Who will be his running mate? So that will be a question. Is it Dr. Waniga will be his running mate, or is it Taban Dengai will be his running mate, or is it Madam Nyandeng will be his running mate, or is it will be the past vice president, the chairman of IO, Dr. Riek Machar, will be his running mate. So this is a very critical, and if the government or is SPLM take that decision, there will be a lot of crisis. Here, according to the release of that letter or the release a few days ago about that SPLM position on the national election. Here they say that the new census, it says here the National Election Act maintain the 332 number of members of the National Assembly who were elected in 2010. Okay, they are going back to 2010 election. Juba and Khartoum, during the Juba and Khartoum election. Okay, and for that reason, there is no need to democrate new constitution for this coming election. In other words, they are saying they are going to use the Juba and Khartoum census. They are not coming up with any new census, but they are used for 2010 census that they held the election between Juba and Khartoum. Okay. So what would be there? The need conducted a new census, which is not required for this upcoming election. Okay. So that's their position. So number two, permanent constitution. Here is what their position as PLM. Okay, they say here we don't need a permanent constitution in order to conduct an election. So they don't need any election. They don't need any constitution, new constitution. They just maintain this constitution that they are having right now in the country. We, for this reason, it is a process which will be carrying forward for the elected government of South Sudan to finish. It is only the elected member of the National Assembly that will decide on permanent constitution of South Sudan. It cannot be done by politically appointed parliament. Now, number three, so returning, when we mentioned before about the returning of refugees, here is SPLM position, okay? Return of refugees. Return to the country of origin is a voluntary choice, okay? Which is, yeah, I agree with them. That's a voluntary choice of the refugees. So the government of South Sudan is not mandated to return the refugees back to the country by force. So they say that the government is not going to go to refugees camp or to POT site to force the citizen to return to their home so that they can go on board. They cannot do that. Imagine if South Sudan referendum was to wait until all South Sudanese refugees return to the country in order to participate in the referendum. What could have happened? That's the question and that's the position. If that is happened, there will be no. In other words, they said that there will be no there will be no referendum, and there will be no the Republic of South Sudan today. So, what is okay? Here is those outside the country may be required to participate in the presidential election wherever they may be, and that will be for the National Election Commission to decide. Now, so their position that said that we will they will conduct a referendum, like the people who stay in refugees camp, they will vote in refugees camp. The people who stay in diaspora, like we here in the United States, we will vote in here. We don't need to go back home and vote. But this is different though. This is not a referendum. This is the country election.
Elections, yeah.
So this is a different. So we cannot, I don't know, South Sudan, do they have absentees vote? People who will not be present at that time, they will cast their vote. So these are, so now this is, that's what is. Now, if they're saying that they are going to take executive election, so that the only one box will be put down, that one box is only everybody can vote yes, President Salva Kiir Mayardit for the next year. So what will be the outcome? Well, we South Sudanese, we are different from other country, and we have seen a lot of campaign right now in social media. So if that is a case, and what that SPLM party have in their mind, and then the question is, who will be the running mate for the president of Salva Kiir? If the only the one box will be yes, and the other one will be empty because there's no running, and that is dangerous. So go ahead, and what do you think about that? Thank you.
Listen, I'm going to give out information that may antagonize some SPLM supporters and some SPLM-IO supporters. And this time I want to give it first before I could respond to your questions. The reality is there's a secret game going on between the two, between the SPLM and the SPLM-IO. The secret is that they want to find a way of having a time to negotiate how His Excellency President and His Excellency First Vice President become a running mates. But remember, if the two are to go running mates, within SPLM there will be crack, within SPLM-IO there will be cracked. So these controversial statements that are countering each other from SPLM-IO, from SPLM, this is just to keep the public engaged, is to divert the attention of the public, while under the cover, the negotiation that likely the two may run. So it's a preparation. How do we convince citizens to be running mate? Indicators are very clear. Even His Excellency President is quiet about the running mate. And this has raised the bar of feelings within other vice presidents very high. Why is His Excellency so quiet with the issue of the running mate? And you could have realized the running mate would have been easier when? The running mate would have been easier if we are to use that approach of what His Excellency President used in the region of Baragazal, where he went to the SPLM members as a citizen to endorse him as a candidate. Why wasn't that event so easy in Equatoria and Upper Nile? Okay, why that endorsement is taking long to happen in Equatoria and Upper Nile, and why in Equatoria is going state by state where the governor goes to a county and say, please, we come to you as a county endorsed. And even in Central Equatoria, we have a language of that. You know, in a bar, they say endorse His Excellency President Salva Koiling. There's a phrase they're using, a body phrase that Koiling. It means those who went to that environment, that when you endorse the president, we automatically endorsed as a flag bearers, which is not something that is not much more easier, because that's a theory that's been used in Equatorial and Upper Nile. But the reality is that people are waiting, when will His Excellency President be endorsed? That silence is something is cooking. So, and that's what I'm saying is going to be a bit annoying some members. But that particular trend, let's give it time. This is my prediction that that's the way we're going to go, is that the two just want to get a time through their strong allies to negotiate a system and go for it, and that will be a surprise to the country. And so many people will be left hanging because after you've been engaged with these controversial statements. That's my own analysis that I know, and the way I read the mood in Juba, that's the direction, and that's what informs me in making this prediction. That's one. If you look at the SPLM letter, was a response to what? Was a response to the position issued by the SPLM-IO through the first Deputy Speaker of the Parliament. That's Honorable Nathaniel Oyet, when he put a lot of strong declaration that, and where he used the language, even they may boycott the elections. If the elections have to go ahead in the manner that does not meet their position, which prerequisites have to be made in creating condition environment. So this letter was addressed for that. The letter of the SPLM, it sounds good in one position, the position of the population census, which I've explained before. Because if you talk about population census and you link with IDPs and refugees return, the refugees and IDPs return is voluntary. There they have made a case. They have won a case. But the other justifications have a lot of illegalities. What are the illegalities? First, the electoral law have called for general elections. The electoral law have not called for segmented elections. This is to be made very clear. And actually, legally, the electoral law have called for the holding of the following elections at the same time: election at national level, election state level, election local government level. That's why it's called national general election. That is what the law of the electoral law have defined. That is one. Secondly, it is the requirement of the agreement that population census should be conducted and constitution should be made, because the current constitution does not commission elections. If you want the current constitution to commission elections, then you need to have a special amendment in certain provisions of the current existing constitution to commission elections and take into account any electoral related provision, because there's no provision in the current constitution that commission real elections. Let us be honest. So if you want to use the current constitution for commission elections, then they need to go for amendments of the current constitution, certain provisions. And that's why the question around population census, the question around constitution making process, the question around return of IDPs and refugees as a prerequisite. That's why you see in so many platforms, so many actors, including regional and international actors, has pushed it back to our leaders. These are the issues where you hear either UN or Troika or civil society or religious leaders say, for us to have the elections by December 2024, some political decisions need to be made. When we say some political decisions have to be made, a political decision on what? One, funding, the question of unification of forces, the question of constitution, the question of population census, the question of open political and civic space. These are the things that require the political parties to use their legitimate time right now, which is from now until June, to reach out for some political decisions. That is one. Secondly, if they are matured enough and they are informed enough, if they are aware that UNIMIS mandate was not renewed, UNIMIS mandate was rollover. Rollover, of course, is a model way of saying extended. So UNIMIS mandate was extended for extra 45 days, which will end on the 30th of April. And that is meant so that international community will make a decision, is South Sudan going for elections or not? Should we support them or not? And people are saying, before April, between now and 30th April, let our political leaders sit in a political dialogue to make some political decisions. Political decision on what? Population census, constitution making, unification of forces, funding of the elections. And some of this process does not require money. For example, declaration of open political and civic space does not need any money. This just needs a pronouncement. Okay? You need to reach consensus. Are we using 2008 population census to draw the geographical constituency, or are you going for new population census? That's a political decision. If the constitution is citizen-driven, it requires a long time. How do we go about the constitution? This is a political question. Allocation of the money does not need really any meeting. It needs just means of finance to transfer the money to the institutions. And that means if the money is there in the seal of the government, and we hope that there's a little money in the seal of the government, then they can transfer. That also requires, that does not require any political gathering. It requires transfer of the money. So in nutshell, three issues require political decision: the return of IDPs and refugees, population census, unification of the forces, and the constitution. These are four issues that require political decisions. And two are compulsory, that everybody talk about, even SPLM talk about it. We can't go for the election with more than one unified army, absence of neutral army. Even SPLM believe on that. We can't go for elections where we don't know the system of governance in terms of the upcoming government as required by the provision of the agreement. And we can't go for elections where it's not constitutional commission. Other decisions that are required to create a better environment: enactment of judiciary reform. This does not require any political gathering. And remember, the Judiciary Commission, which have done huge reforms, they're supposed to launch their report on the reforms last week. It was postponed to this coming week. And this coming week is the end of the mandate of the judiciary reform. So it means the commissioner, who is a Ugandan and deputized by Kenyan, may leave Juba because the mandate have come to an end without even handing over a report. That's a disaster. And some of us were calling president to commission it to happen quickly. Why is it postponed? Because it gives a big opportunity. Remember, judicial reforms, it have involved issues to do even with the constitutional reforms, because it's broader. Even the judiciary of the elections is part of that reform. So the current constitution doesn't commission elections. You need to have a constitutional amendment to commission elections if you don't want to go for permanent constitution. So for me, the statement, only what is holding water is the argument around the return of IDPs and refugees is voluntary. The rest have legalities. And I believe that SPLM have legal experts. Okay, I believe they have legal experts. Michael McQuay is there as a professional lawyer. Lawrence Kurbandi is there as a professional lawyer. And I'm quite sure there's quite a number of lawyers. Whether this statement have been subject for legal interpretation by the well-informed legal scholars within the party to do proper interpretation, or is just a statement drafted and then made on the public statements, on the public domain like that. So for me, it have a lot of legalities. It's the same as with the IO. As the IO put a lot of preconditions. Some of them are limited to their own way of doing things. You know, so for me, both SPLM and SPLM-IO, they have a secret game that they keep us engaged with the huge public argument they have, controversial statement. But my prediction, don't get surprised when they both run a joint ticket and the country will get surprised that, oh, so all these 5 years and is all this hardship, this is the end game. And I don't know what does that mean to other aspirants who want to be running mates. How are they going to handle it? I don't know. But I feel the game that I can read in the town, something is in cooking, and you know, when you are silent, silence means a lot. So let us not get surprised to get a joint ticket over that. And indicators are very clear. Look, where is South Africa? The president of South Africa is supposed to come here last week. It was postponed. ANC is engaged on the SPLM unification. The only challenge will be that we'll have a cracks if that strategy goes in not in a transparent and open manner. There'll be cracks within the two parties, and those cracks may even undermine the holding of a democratic and peaceful elections if they're not properly managed and administered. So that is my answer. So this concept of executive elections with argument of undermining provisions of the agreement and violating them, it will be problematic because it will be breach to the Constitution Making Act, it will be breach to the Election Act, it will be breach on the agreement, and that means a lot. And nobody is ready to go for that pathway. So these are my answers.
Thank you, Brother Imon. And you know, there's a leaked document out by ISPLIO last month, and probably this is where I see this leaked document. I thought this is just a propaganda came out from ISPLIO, but it seemed like the way that things are going, that talk behind the scenes will be coming out. This leaked document was dated back on January 1st. On the 25th, 2024 this year, it is saying here that the president will remain the presidency. So President Salva Kiir will remain as the Republic of South Sudan president, and the vice president will be Dr. Riek Machar. Shall remain as a vice president during downside the national unit government. Okay, and the fourth. Okay, those number one is the presidency. President Salva Kiir will remain as the president. And then second, vice president, Dr. Riek Machar will remain as the first vice president. And then the fourth vice president by downside to be appointed as the following, Dr. James Waniga will go back to parliament as the speaker of TNILA. Okay, and Taban Dengai will go back to governor of Unity State or appointed head advisor. Azalbagi Ayi will be appointed as a governor of Northern Barghazal. And Madame Rebecca Nyandeng will be appointed as a governor of Jonglei State. And transition governor legislative of TNLA of 550 members will reduce to 332, which is that's mentioned in that press release a couple of days ago. And also, the Ministerial said the Council of Ministry will be downsized to 25 members from the current 35. You see, the current now cabinet is 35, will go down to 25. And also, the deputy ministries will be reduced to 7 from the currently 10. Okay, they have 10 right now. It will be reduced to 7. This is the link. This is a link document. It's not comparable, but this is a link document which is by IO. We received this. I received this one last month. But the way that's the preparation of the election going on right now, this document we should be telling, or the reality will come to light. Okay, and also number 7, he said that the Council of State shall be reduced to 66 members from the 100. Okay, with 1 deputy speaker, and the speaker shall go to SOA party. Of the governor and the chief administrative commissioner shall not be affected during the downsized government. Okay, and then the state assembly to be downsized to 60 members from the currently 100. So now they have 100, but it will be downsized to 60. And then the last one, the state council of ministries will be downsized to 12 ministries from the present number. Now, the reason why I bring this one, I never talk about this, Edmund, but the way things are right now, this document is telling everything. Okay, this big document last month in January, it say everything right now how this will go. So what do you say about that leak?
To tell you the truth is that there are 3 classes right now in town offering options. This particular group is shared between secret players from all the parties. It's a clique that have merged and they designed this strategy. And even not only ending here, my brother, this particular document, you don't call it anymore leak. It's not leak. It's actually a document buying attention. Why? It was published in one of a very sellable newspaper in Juba called City Review. And it was published in the front page of City Review with all those shifts, specifically the presidency. And it was not blocked by national security. It was not a removed article. It's a front page article. And that day, the paper sells so much that this end up as quick because the designers of this strategy have leaked out to the public of B. So public will run and bought the paper, and not in all papers, in one single paper. That's it. And actually, I have a copy of the paper. I wish if I knew that you were going to question, I would have shown you the page. Actually, I may check in my phone if I have that. I would have shown you because I took a picture of that paper. So it is a high-level players from all the parties who have set and designed this. So the same people who leaked to you this document, they are behind the document. They are marketing it. They're not leaking it actually. It's not leakage, it's marketing. These guys are doing marketing. So whoever find that document and that document read to you, the channel where this document merged out of, these are the marketeers of this document. And the principle is one, is that if we are caught up with everything, let's go back to the arrangement of the government per 2012, before the crash of 2013, if you want to discover the logic behind that. That's one group. Later on, I'll tell you whether that's possible or not. The second group is a group which have proposed, remember, an extension of a period now. Remember when our brother, Honorable David Didau, came with this concept of 2 months, public attention was engaged. Now, his concept of 2 months, of 2 years, when David Didau came that as an MP in the parliament, let the government be extended for 2 years. People are shouting, oh, David Didau, what happened? What is wrong? My brother, Honorable. So he proposed. Now, Ayo boy bought his idea. So Ayo is now going with his idea of the 2 years. But the government have said, we are going for elections. That's now the third group from the government. We're going to elections. If you're not going for election, any extension must be a full-fledged term of office. That means 5 years. So these are the 3 schools of thought. One is the reduction and setup of a government per the 2012 arrangement. One extension of 2 years, which already IO have bought it already. Then the government saying, if we're not going to go for election, if it compromise for any extension, then we need a full-term office, 5 years. But we have to go for elections. But also the option of going for elections, we're going for elections with certain arrangements. Now, the challenge is that they are faced with the reality. The reality is they have to go for elections as required by the agreement. But they are fixed. They're at fixed. Why? Because they have exercised for all this period high level of deficit in trust and confidence that have dragged their feet so much in doing what is required by the agreement. So the agreement now fixed them that your mistrust and your lack of confidence have proven that you don't have the political will to transition the country from violence to peace. And that's one other gambling with those other three options. Any of those three options have no space to come to surface or to function as the provision of the agreement is concerned. Either they will do this after the declared agreement is expired. Now there's a question of what legitimacy have they gained to this to establish this if the agreement expires. It means expiration of the agreement is together with the collapse of the government. So it means the current incumbent government have to go and interim government have to come in. Interim arrangement has to be in. So they can't, they don't have any shortcuts. The only thing they have is that let them agree that let us go to the end of the river, we all collapse, and we bring in new political blood under interim arrangement. Or we go for the elections. Or the last resort, we go for further extension. They don't have anything else. But these setups that they're going to transform our Rebecca to go to Jongole and Wanega to go to the parliament and Abdelbagi have to go, it does not have any legality as the agreement is concerned. It's a complete violation, and it will never have any buy-in regionally, internationally. That will never happen. Even with the citizens, they're going to get it rough for this people to assume the governorship. But the message behind that idea is that something is cooking for creating a joint ticket of His Excellency President and First Vice President. That's the key messages in that arrangement. The rest of the deployment of this one here and reduction here, these are just for public consumption. But the primary objective in that strategy is that a joint ticket have to be created between the first two. And they're very clever. Do you know what they're taking advantage? They're taking because in the agreement in Article 1, the name of the president is named as a president, and the name of the first vice president is named as a first vice president. Because the names have been named in the agreement, let's not antagonize them. Let the two continue until we reach the moment. That's the logic behind it. But the rest is now to give everybody, look here also, we have opportunity. No any arrangement for parliament will be legal outside the agreement arrangement, which is parliamentarians have to be voted. Yes, the electoral law have called for 332 seats, but those 332 seats have to be elected, not appointed, or they can't retain. Those went to Khartoum and those were in 170 parliament of the before 2013 crisis, and those 66 appointees cannot claim any legitimacy anymore. After the signing of the electoral law into a law, their mandate have expired. The vote they get during 2010 elections have expired upon the signing of the new electoral law by the president. The new electoral law prevailed and offers opportunity for MPs to be voted in, for executive in terms of governor, president to be voted in, then Council of State have to be voted through its arrangement by the legislation for the establishment of the Council of States. So they don't have a shortcut, but those are attempts that they're doing. But those attempts, I don't think will have any buy-in, regionally or internationally, and even national within the citizens, because it's outside the peace agreement. One thing that the political parties have not discovered is that this agreement have hold them hostage for any political processes that they want to entail for claiming or retention of the government. This agreement affects them. They have no way. The only way they have is elections. So they need to make and agree on the elections. And good enough, His Excellency First Vice President agree for political dialogue. And he say, let us dialogue over the elections. And let somebody come in to help us over dialogue. So everybody knew the only pathway is elections. You can't come to the government anymore without being elected. You need to be elected. But now, how to conduct elections, it's a challenge they have been faced with simply because of the deficit in trust and lack of confidence. All these 5 or 6 years, they have been dragging their feet not to deliver. So they are at fixed. No shortcut. This is a time where they have to remember the importance of Pope's visit, Pope's prayer. They have no way. And unfortunately, the situation is getting worse with them because Sudan's situation also is deteriorating. So access to revenue from the oil is no longer there to facilitate the electoral process. The only things, they have to look for loans. They have to go for loans. Look where Qatar is, where Emirates is, and if those loans are mortgaged, generations to come, they are generation, what we call cake, is already sold, and that's the only way we can go. As long we can't go for violence, as long, for me, it's really the respect of the agreement. They undermined the agreement for quite long, but now the agreement is fixing them. No way. So, and this is the reality of political maturity and discipline. When you are politically immature and you are indisciplined, this is the way how your own commitment hold you hostage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Imon. Yeah, before we go to another challenging phase, the election economy, we'll go that. First, let me go this. You talked a little bit about the registration for a political party, and the fee is $775,000 US dollar. Why is it they come up with this amount, the political party registered 75? Is it because they're making it hard for those political parties to register? Will this political party afford to register? Where will they get the $5,000? So this fee, and how do you see? Is it a challenge? Who is come up with this idea, and how the other political party, how did they respond to this $75,000? Go ahead.
Thank you very much. Personally, I investigated the origin of that fees. Where does it come from? I look at the law for establishing the political parties council. It have not commissioned that. It have commissioned fees, but it have not commissioned the figure of the fees. That's one thing that I investigated. The second thing I try to investigate is also to look into what is a standard per African Charter for African Charter for Election and Democracy. The African Charter for Election and Democracy is calling for a concept that let registration of political parties not be an obstacle for denying the growth of democracy through establishment of political parties. So the African Charter for Governance and Elections and Democracy is demanding affordable registration of political parties. So when I look at the basis is that the Political Parties Council did a literature review of the region, how political parties are registered in the region and what are the registration fees. So they landed on registration fees of Ghana. Ghana registered political parties with 50,000, but once for all. But the reality is that our economy is not equal to the economy of Ghana. 25,000 were created extrally for you to claim your permanent registration. And the way around is that even if you register with 50,000 in South Sudan as a political party, you may not get a full legitimacy until you pay the 25,000 to claim what you call your permanent registration status, because the 50 is for provisional, which is really, while in Ghana, the 50 is for complete period. So that is really abnormal fees for registration. But I think the idea behind it is first, to limit the numbers of political parties in the country, which means to limit the growth of democracy to specific political parties. And if you realize there's no petitioning of that fees, the SPLM and the SPLM-IO are quite about that fees. It seems they're comfortable with it. They can manage it because they have ministers, they have MPs, they can generate that. But new merging political parties, and specifically political parties with young people who may not have access to income to generate this, they were silent. So until I have to do a bit of lobby and push political parties, why are you silent? And that's why, as I mentioned at the beginning, that right now I think around 3 coalitions have come together and issue a statement. And I wish I was looking for the statement to share with you. The statement is that SOA, then there's another group called COP, and then there's another umbrella. They came together as a coalitions of political parties. They want to challenge the 50,000 registration fees concept. And I think they will really, if they find proper judiciary that will question the basis on how the 50,000 is generated, they may win the case. Because one thing that I would like to share with South Sudanese, we should not so much believe on violence. The use of the gun for building democracy is not the best approach. The best approach is always test the law. The law must be tested. And I think these 3 or 4 coalitions that are tomorrow going to petition the 50,000 fees allocated for the political parties, they are exercising their right to test the law. Because once you test the law, that's how democracy grows. Democracy doesn't grow with the bullet of the gun. Democracy grows by testing the law. If you feel the law is not respected, test it. And how to test the law? Go and open a case, petition. So I really appreciate these political parties for exercising a non-violent and a democratic practices of petitioning the concept of 50,000. But of course, to be honest with you, that is there. Though we are aware, there's a facts here that I want to set true. Also, some of these people who call themselves political parties in Juba, to be honest with you, my brother Abraham, they don't really meet the standard of political parties. A husband and a wife and sisters-in-law, brothers-in-law, plus friends, they're political party. But also the level of political maturity in them, if you see, they don't have it. What they have is just access to power. If through the slogan of my party, I end up as an MP state level, as a county commissioner, as national MP, finish. That's the game. But ideology, internal system of the party is not there. So some of those parties, by the virtue of the condition of registration, they are not going to meet the condition. First, the numbers of the required members for them to register party is problematic. And when I was talking to the chairperson of the Political Parties Council, one of the reasons that he justified, and he tried to say why like they really impose about 50,000. For example, if you have 500 members for your political party from at least 7 states across the country, if you give each of them to pay $100 for registration, then how much do you have? That's the logic they have behind that. Political parties are not broke. They're supposed to mobilize 500 members from at least 7 states, and if each of them pay $100, what does that mean? So that's the way how they are pushing the concept that the political parties can generate income. But whether the political parties will make that 500, and you know, my brother Abraham, I was telling the Political Parties Council that they need to work in collaboration with the migration, because there's a likelihood we may have ghost South Sudanese for registering political party, by the way. We may not have South Sudanese who exist, but they may exist in the list of those political parties for registration.
Right.
With a ghost national ID card, because it's a matter of you sitting down in your room, type 500 names. After all, you know, you mix the Deng, the Majoks, you mix the Lado and the Wane, you bring the KGs and you put the Kadejas and you mix them up there. Nasinia, Nakopaya, Namalangi, Naglas, Futuyo, you know, Bagude, you know, you mix those names. The Oguho and those names of the Toposas, the Lobongs, you mix them here and there. 500, you present them with national ID card. What the political parties will prove. They don't have a system to prove whether these are real, live existing people, whether the ID cards exist, until if they have a verification from migration, then migration can tell them, oh, these numbers of the ID cards are fake because it's not there in our registry system. These names are not there among the South Sudanese who have obtained nationality until they've undergone that process. But otherwise, if the political parties cancel, is not undergone that process, my brothers, we are very excellent in ghost deals. We can create a ghost names, 500, and register a political party. That's one. But also one disturbing thing that take us to the economy. Imagine, Political Parties Council is commissioning registration fees of South Sudan political parties that are going to assume the role of running a government. The registration fees are in foreign currency, 75,000 US dollars. Why not in SSP? Now, your domestic political processes doesn't impress your domestic currency. You have to charge them in foreign currency. What messages are you sending? Why should you use it? Why should you use $1 for registering a political party that is going to assume the responsibility of sovereignty of the country? Why not using SSP? That's a very bad message to the citizen. Like it seems the political leadership of the country have agreed that SSP is dead. They don't want SSP anymore. Because government is a product of political parties. Government is not a product of churches. Government is not a product of civil society or private sector. It is political parties that form a government. Now, if political parties that form a government cannot recognize SSP, they recognize dollar. What is that message? And for me, those political parties that are petitioning, I think even they should petition the use of dollar. We should use SSP. We should register our political parties in SSP. And the account of the Political Parties Council should be in an SSP, not $1. Unless if you say we want to glorify dollar as the best currency for us, that we don't have a national currency. So for me, those are issues, petty issues, but they have a huge implications on the future. And they have huge implications on the way how we want to form the state of South Sudan or the government of South Sudan to function with a full-fledged commitment towards sovereignty. Sovereignty is not something empty. Sovereignty goes together with the responsibility. So if registration of political parties cannot recognize the currency of the nation and recognize a currency of a foreign country as to define the unit for payment for registration fees, that itself is a disaster. Thank you.
Yes. Thank you very much. Before we go to our last topic about economy, which is the challenging of economy toward elections, let me play this video very quick. This video is I want to play this video and then you respond, because this one is coming from EAL, a member or representative of South Sudan within East Africa community. So this is a video from Honorable Dr. Gabriel Garang and the others member of South Sudan within that EAL member. So let me play this video and then you need to respond to this.
It's actually accepting if there is a country in the East African community that is actually accepting all East Africans to work and to move freely, there's no country in South Sudan. I'm actually telling you this one without fear of contradictions. If you go, you look all over Kenya, South Sudanese are not doing business. Actually, maybe except with the millionaires who can be able to afford that. This is the reality. Nobody can debate about it. You go to South Sudan today, you will find all Kenyans doing all sort of things. You go, you will find Ugandans doing all sort of things. There's no discrimination where they come from.
After becoming the sixth partner state to the East African Community on the 1st of October 2016, the country was to continue with the national process of incorporating the provision of the treaty into national laws within 12 months as stipulated in Article 8, Clause 2 of the East African Treaty.
That as the member of council who is here comes up to answer these issues, he should give us a definite date, maybe 2 months from now, because they have to consult, as to when they will brief the assembly and members on the state of domestication of the treaty. However, even partner states where the treaty has been domesticated into national laws, you still have East Africans, for example, living in East African countries as aliens and holding alien cards. I am surprised.
Not only South Sudan that have got some challenges with the implementation of certain key important areas of our integration, especially on investment. They need to be assessing, for the council to assess the standard minimum of people to start to do business in East African community.
With the growing need for possible federation as DRC and Somalia comes on board, the East African legislators say activities of the community in the territories of South Sudan are still illegal and unsupported by the national laws, thus a call for a way forward.
South Sudan has not domesticated the treaty, and therefore any other East African law does not apply at the territory of South Sudan. So with that, the best to do is for us to make sure that the treaty is domesticated by having it passed by the council as well as the Transitional National Legislative Assembly, for us to have the legal basis under which we can say don't register.
Although South Sudan agreed to waive an immigration visa fee for the East Africans from all the partner states, Honorable Dr. Wada Jeremiah calls on the East African Community Council ministers to ensure funds are allocated to assist South Sudan domesticate the East African Community Treaty.
But Right Honorable Speaker, as I said, the trainings offered by the Council of Ministers through the Secretariat to the Republic of South Sudan were really very minimum. The budget was only allocated in the year 2018-2019, Right Honorable Speaker. The trainings were very short, less than 1 to 2 days.
South Sudan has remained reserved in the full implementation of other provisions of the treaty on fear of risking home security on drug trafficking, transnational crimes, and extreme threats and attacks, among others.
Okay, so here you have it. So what is your response to that?
Yeah, I want to respond to that I want to respond to that also at my status as a sitting president of East African Civil Society, which is called EACSOP. EACSOP is East African Civil Society Organization Forum. Per now, I'm the sitting president. Look, the integration of East African community is supposed to be a citizen-centered integration. Yes, the reality is that we have not yet domesticated the East African Treaty. It's not yet passed by our parliament and by our Council of Ministers, as one of the honorable have said. But because of our approach of open economy, East African country citizens and beyond East Africa, even Middle East, are benefiting from our open market policy. They're there in the market. And some of them are there in the market because they are in partnership with some of our generals and political elites because of the open economy strategy. That's one of it. I want to put some facts before I could go for my conclusion. Tanzania, where the headquarters is, Tanzania is still reserved on domestication of the East African Treaty. Today, if you go to Tanzania as South Sudanese, you will not get easy to establish a South Sudanese organization in Tanzania or a businesses without responding to their domestic legislation that protect their own national space. The only thing that Rhinos East African citizens is enjoying is a passport, the East African passport. But this passport have no privilege apart from the privilege of movement. You can't exit. If you want to go for trade, you have to look. In Kenya, like what one of the honorable said, if you want to put a business as South Sudanese or in Uganda, you need to do connections or you need to be a millionaire because the laws there are very aggressive. For instance, can Opportunity Bank of South Sudan open a branch in Tanzania or in Uganda or in Kenya? They can't. But look, our domestic commercial banks are all dead. But right now, we have spoken with you before. Right now, we are managed by foreign East African banks. KCB is here, Equity is here, Stanbic is here, ECO is here, and these are the banks that take responsibility of shaping the private sector in our country. We have not restricted them. That's what one of the honorables saying. South Sudan is an open market economy, though it have a disaster on the growth of the economy, by the way. So I think for me, it's still, even in Uganda, there's reservations. And even the concept of the federation, for Museveni believe as long he is not the first president of East African community, he's not ready for federation. That's Uganda Tech. For Kenya, as long you talk of East African integration, Kenyan banks cannot operate beyond Kenya. Then that is look at the way how the former president Uhuru brought DRC. He brought DRC with an immediate opening of KCB and Equity branches in DRC. That's a concept. So it's a concept of you benefit where you feel you have the strengths of winning the business. So for me, that's the challenge. And our MPs have raised it up. Unfortunately, our national MPs' capacity in doing domestic reading and positioning on the East African community integration is a bit limited. The executive organ of the government is a bit limited in doing that. Second, let me tell you, why is KQ flight ticket from Nairobi to Juba have to be $1,000 as if you're flying from Nairobi to Europe, or even less? Some European distance are less than that. Okay, $1,000. That's a ticket of KQ. Why in all KQ trips within East African community is less than that? It's 200, 300, 400. Why is South Sudan, the shortest distance, expensive? What type of government do we have that does not question that? And even I wish our East African parliamentarians could have questioned, because that's the role of our EAC. We have members there in the East African Parliament that does not question the Kenyan government. Why should KQ overcharge? Somebody was telling me because KQ have lost a lot of money, they are recovering from Juba. And our government is silent. Our government is not responding for that. Have you seen here? So for me, the question of domestication of the East African Treaty require proper analogy, require proper analysis, require proper positioning. Yes, it's a benefit, by the way. It have huge benefit if you were to go for it. It have huge benefit. But also those benefits, you need to be reserved about your domestic interests. You can't start domestic interests all over like that. And remember, we are still a virgin economy. That if you don't stand up, we are virgin economy in a way that we can ship. Let me tell you, the coming of Somalia, this is what I used to tell people as a president of East African Civil Society. The coming of Somalia to East African community, if we are not careful, Somalia is going to be in charge of East African currency. If we to have East African currency, one single currency. Or even Somalia, with all its crisis, is going to be the determiner of East African economy. Why? South Sudan, they're in charge of the fuel sector. They're in charge of the construction materials. They're in Uganda the same. They're in Kenya the same. They have now established a regional financial transfer agents. What do you call the HAPSIL? And they may create more than the HAPSIL. So they're going to be in charge of their actual money, the physical money. So Somalia's coming is not easy. DRC is coming with its conflict to East African community. And remember, DRC, a young, newly incoming member, what French call Le Nouveau. You know, the Le Nouveau, we just came just a Le Nouveau, becoming more stubborn, denying the whole East African community not to send observers to the elections in DRC. Opening a front line with Tanzania, opening a front line with Rwanda, with front line with Burundi. So DRC is coming with the muscles of fighting, kicking out this East African peacekeeping standby force, which is not meant to fight M23, it's meant to keep peace. They say, no, we need to fight M23. So they want even our SSPDF, who are taken there, they want them to die on the expenses of securing government of DRC, the control over the opposition. So have you seen that? Those are all legality that have to do with the domestication of East African Treaty in the Republic of South Sudan. So for me, it's much more of our government need to constitute. And that's why when I met the president, I told the president, I say, President, yes, we have the Ministry of East African Affairs. We have a committee in the parliament for East African Affairs. They too need to start doing research. They too need to start doing homework of understanding the treaty before its domestication. They too need to sensitize the citizens. They too need to attract academia to provide them policy advice so that we don't jump into East African community. And I've learned a lot. Being a president of civil society, my brother, I have learned a lot. The way how selective they act, the way how strategically they respond. I'm a fan of East African community. I'm not against it, I'm a fan of it. But I feel our positioning at home level is not yet ready to feed us to exist in East African community until when we have leaders who really take care of what's called. You see the committee in the parliament for East African community affairs, headed by one MP who just like to give public statements, capacity of research. I asked them recently, why is KQ overcharging us? And these are East African airline, East African member state airline. Why are they charging over 1,000 for trip of Juba? Why? And that rate is almost 4 times or 5 times within East African countries. What is the unique? Because we have opened our economy to be milked by them.
And we are very vulnerable for that, because that's where, because our life now is based on, because everything is coming from Uganda, from Kenya. So let's go back, let's go to the lead to our economy, which is our last topic. I have 2 videos, but they are very long. I will play those videos after our discussion, and then I'll play those, let our audience can listen and watch. So this 2 weeks ago, actually, we have seen the change in the financial system. The new Dr. Bach was fired, and then we have a new Ministry of Finance, which is take over right now, which is engineering. He don't have a background of economy, which is a very, we don't know why the government of, president take that decision, and why he decided to to fire Dr. Barr. So you see, the election is coming on. Okay, but we have a crisis of economy. The dollar rate is going up. I heard that it's like 200 right now, and it's still going up. And the prices at the market are skyrocketing. Citizens cannot afford to buy a bag of sorghum. And this is what's going on. This is one of the challenges of the election. So what is I have a video here. This video, I have two videos, but the video of new Minister of Finance, I will play that at the end because it's 30 minutes. So I will play that, but there's a video for 10 minutes by this is Dr. James Alain Garang, Governor of South Sudan Bank. So I would like to listen to him.
I always say that when someone comes in the middle or at the end, they usually find that a lot has been said. And all that they have to do is to pick and choose what to emphasize. And in this morning, with the time running, I'm just going to choose 4 areas where I need to put my emphasis on. And those will be the remarks that I will deliver on behalf of the Bank of South Sudan. So to you, my brother, Honorable Engineer, has bestowed upon you at this time to serve and to lead our people at this institution. Thank you and welcome. I would like to use this opportunity, having said that, to highlight 4 that I've just said earlier. One is to call upon all of us, especially the economic or financial sector and the staff of the Minister of Finance, to join hands to support Minister of Finance. This is rightly so that he can deliver for this country. The second point that I would like to highlight at this time is to say one hand cannot clap. It is many hands that claps. And as a result, reviving the economy needs all our hands on deck. From the Revenue Authority to the Public Procurement Authority to the Ministry itself, the Bank of South Sudan, to the Petroleum, and all the institutions that matters both in production and consumption of this economy. With this, I challenge all of us to join hands and cooperate. The third point that I would like to highlight at this point, my brother, is the point that was highlighted earlier by Honorable Malwal and also echoed by Honorable Albino Duck, and that is the element of policy continuity. Policy continuity means that you look back from what you have. Let me just highlight a few of them. One of them is on revenue collection. You have seen in the last few months, the Minister of Finance has gone to Lumile several times to ensure that those reforms are put in place, that those checkpoints are removed, and that everything that needs to be done to ensure the revenue collection is done. That is the policy area that needs to be picked up because it has shown some fruit. The other area where the Minister of Finance has shown an interest in the last few months is the area of agriculture. And in this bank, you have seen the reform that was made, especially the initiative that was made by the Minister of Agriculture, along with the Agriculture Bank of South Sudan, and the composition of the board that was brought on board. The board has sworn to make sure that as the planning season approaches, that the Minister of Finance will stand with the board to give them all the necessary tools that they need to ensure that our people are permanent. This is one policy area that the former Minister of Finance has left, and I believe it is an area that has received a wide support across our public. To support agriculture, it's not just support verbally, but to support it with resources. And the Minister of Finance is in place to ensure that the Minister of Agriculture and the Ministry and the Agricultural Bank of South Sudan is supported to ensure production. The other critical point, which was highlighted earlier by the Revenue Authority, is the introduction of electronic cargo tracking system. This is something that has a huge potential to increase our revenue collection. And as a result, those of Honorable Gogmakur, those of Malwal and Benjamin, and the rest of your team, and of course, with the Revenue Authority, they will bring you on board and to ensure that this is an area that needs to be picked up. There is also the other element at the Bank of South Sudan, and which is the national payment system. This is an area where the government has shown a huge interest, and the Minister of Finance was behind it day and night to ensure that we deliver. And this is an area also where the Central Bank will need the support from the Minister of Finance to ensure that all that we need from our donors for this to succeed is on board. Being the fiscal authority, you represent the government in that regard. One other policy area here where I would like to see continuity, and yesterday after I was swearing in, I informed you that for the last 5 years, we have been talking about opening a branch in Numili. And for some reason, it has not succeeded because of the conflict and other things that have happened in the past. For the last 1 month, the bank has made effort, and the Minister of Finance has been in the forefront to ensure that once we open the branch in Numili, as a bank, it is our mandate to do that. It will allow us to provide financial services to our people in the area. But there is the other aspect of revenue collection, and that's where the Minister of Finance is very critical. When we open the branch, we'll have the windows that will be open for the government, in this case, the Minister of Finance, to ensure that the revenue collection goes directly into the government account. This has so many benefits, one of which is to reduce the daily transfer of cash if there's a need, and also the risks that are involved, because the bank will be able to collect as much as it can. And when the time comes for it to be transported, then there is a security to do that. This is an area that has been supported by the ministry, and it is succeeding, because by this weekend, all of us, including yourself, and all the relevant institutions will be going to Numili so that we open the branch, so that the government can use it. And in this case now, the Revenue Authority would have also achieved some of their mandate. So what I wanted to say here is that where the previous person has left, let us speak up so that we have the full speed. And I'm confident that this is also what you have signaled to pick up where the previous minister has left. One of my last point here is what you know already, given your wealth of experience, both in the public sector and in the oil sector. And this relates to what His Excellency told you yesterday, and the rest of us who were in the room. And he highlighted the same analogy that he even said last week during the swearing in of one of the board members, which is to say, he looked on the left and says, you know the community called Zande? And we said yes. He said, Zande, they have a symbol, the V. And he went on and elaborated what the V or the V's stand for. They work day and night. They work day and night to ensure that they pollinate, or there's a pollination, which then in the end produce the honey. All of us in the financial or the economic sector will work hand in hand, day and night, like bees, to ensure that our economy is revived, so that all the things that we like to do as the people are delivered. And in this context, let me just highlight, my brother, the element or the need for us to strengthen international cooperation. International cooperation, you know what it means. From the work that you have done previously with oil sectors and within the government and across, while we push to produce at home, we must also strengthen our relation with our partners, from the oil sectors to the international financial institution. And with this, there is no doubt that under your leadership, South Sudan will move forward both with passion and zeal to ensure that the international cooperation is restored, even up to our glorious day. With these remarks, let me welcome you to the ministry, and let me say the Bank of South Sudan, the rest of us, look forward to working with you in one spirit, serving our country. Thank you very much.
Okay. So now, Idmun, so what the failure within financial sector? What is going on with that ministry? President can change the Ministry of Finance, but if the system is not fixed, the same thing will happen. So what is going on? What is the reason why? Number one, what is the reason why President decided to remove Dr. Bob? Is it because of a dollar rate economic crisis, or is it because of the remark that he did during the Wounded Warriors protests? So go ahead, what's your perspective on this? Thank you.
It may be a couple of factors. First, I'd like to tell you, besides having a cooling room, you can see how much I'm sweating the shirt I'm in. The heat is really much, besides all fans around and
I think we would be
the climate change is real. No, but I like it. I like it. The climate change is real. Let's handle national issues. But I just want to show the people that the climate change is real, and we must stand for climate change solutions. It will be a couple of reasons. There are a couple of reasons of why he decided to change the minister. First, the position of the Minister of Finance. It is not a professional position. It's a highly political, contested power broker's position. It's one of the ministries that power brokers around it are too many. There are too many. They are from an ethnic line, they are from regional line, they are from state line, they are from comrades lines, they are from veteran line. So there's so many people on daily basis who want to make sure the Minister of Finance dance their tune. Even Awo, I don't think Awo is going to stay long if it's to confront those forces. And maybe among those forces, they might have brought him to the ministry and need to favor them. If he failed to favor them, he will be dealt with. So that's the first thing problem with the Minister of Finance, that the seat of the minister is so much bargained power by people who does not understand economy, who doesn't understand how finance work. And I think also there's a bit of acceptance from presidency for that. I wish President could have rejected that and give the Minister of Finance a term of office, 4 years, 4 years, 5 years. You deliver, you don't deliver, and then you're out. That's one thing that I like to say forward that is challenging. The second thing, there's a belief that improvement of the economy is a primary responsibility of the Minister of Finance, which is wrong. The current economic situation we're facing is a structural issue. Is a structural issue related to the way how we administer our monetary policy, related to the way how we administer our fiscal policy, related to how much are we in charge of our domestic economy, versus what I can say, economy that we can call as external, or players that come external. And I've several times I've used the banking system. Look at how much domestic banks do we have South Sudanese owned. Most of the domestic banks are foreign owned. And look at us, the non-governmental organization and the whole NGO world on the humanitarian sector, which generate millions of billions of dollars income to the country, are all banking in commercial banks that are foreign based, not domestic based. So our domestic banks has failed. So what does that mean in terms of providing private sector corrupt loans with the proper collateral policies? We're not there. It's been taken over by foreign banks. So those are all structural issues. Look at the way we turn Ministry of Finance as a payment unit, which is not. That's a structural issue. Look at the way how we decided to compromise with the independence of central bank. Even look at the way how the governor was speaking. The governor was speaking with the message of even begging the Ministry of Finance to cooperate. Central bank is not a paying bank. Central bank is not part of Ministry of Finance. Central bank is an independent body that is tasked to provide reserve to the country for strengthening the currency. Ministry of Finance cannot write a check to central bank and withdraw money. Ministry of Finance have to buy money or have to borrow money from central bank. So you can't say in the Ministry of Finance, say you go and collect money. And that's why commercial banks that are foreign, when they put their money into central bank use the money and become a disaster. Because central bank also become a paying unit. Which central bank is not a paying unit. Central bank is an entity to make sure it strengthens the currency by investing on reserve. And Ministry of Finance have to really buy from them. Whatever Ministry of Finance want if they are at fixed. And unfortunately, Minister of Finance have an office within the central bank. That compromises the independence of the central bank. Those are structural issues that comes in. Whatever they have said, also the concept of how we see the effective multiplier of revenue that we have at hand, for example, from the oil. How much of the revenue from the oil are we injecting to the production sector, agriculture, infrastructure, Ministry of Interior? They talk about Western Equatoria. The central bank governor was talking about Western Equatoria. My brother, if you go to Western Equatoria today, the food is high. People have food in their houses, but don't have roads to the markets. If they have roads to the market, don't have the safety. You know this dollar rate, let me tell you, this dollar game is so visible in Juba. The moment you leave Juba, you start going to the States, you don't feel it. Why? Because people have domestic production that covers. You go to jungle, you go to Bor, the dollars start disappearing. Go to the, because people are eating fish, they have the things there. There, at least 1,000, you'll feel it has a value. But in Juba, 1,000 has no value. 1,000 cannot buy for you a plate of food. Go to Western Equatoria, 1,500, you will survive the whole day. You'll get a very good beef of goat with a very good ugali. You sit, you eat properly. That is around 1,000 or 700. In the evening, you add to it some cassava and some honey to eat naturally. You're okay. But this one in Juba, my friend, even breakfast, you can't manage with it. And while Juba is highly populated, so the question is, the finance and the economic sector is being so much polarized with the politics, with ethnic representation, with the friends representation, with the cliques representation, that does not sit and look into the structural issues that our economy and finance sector is facing. And that's why I'm saying, even if President is to bring Jesus Christ or Prophet Muhammad as a Minister of Finance, they will not save 1 year. They will go. Because the structural issues is very hard to handle. And in terms of corruption, many people believe that is a Minister of Finance who is corrupt in all this. My brother Abraham, I will assure you, they are director generals. There's a directors in the Ministry of Finance. They are even more stronger than the minister. They will receive the minister. They will integrate the minister into the system in the ministry. Imagine technocrats integrating a political figure that makes decisions in the Council of Ministers to their system. They will receive you. Look at the reception. That's the reception of Awo in the ministry. Look at the reception. Look at those suits. Let him be removed. Let him organize an event. He may not secure 10% of that reception. He will never. You will not get it. And that's why the only thing you have to do is that if you remove in the event of handing over event, you come in to attend, and that's why Dr. Bag attended. Let Dr. Bag organize another one, like a Thanksgiving for being the ministry. He will not secure the same number of the people the day when he was appointed as a minister. So most of those people, those faces you see around the event of the reception, most of them are the power brokers. Some of them, as you're delivering the speech, they start making for you a sign like, my brother, don't make any speech without securing for us this. We are watching it, you. Please go to the ministry and get us something. Even some of them right from the event, they start asking, now, Makalas, you have taken, where is ours? Give us something. So for me, that's the problem of the Minister of Finance. And that is where also His Excellency President have entertained those characters so much, those practices. So for me, that's the issue of our economy is a structural issue. It's not by replacing ministers. You can change thousands of ministers in 1 week, they will not improve. Why? Because it's structural. It's the way how we look at our monetary policy, how to implement our fiscal, and even check and balance to the books of the government. When we're talking about electronic cargo control system, we want to go for electronic payment system so that we avoid the ghost names. Imagine generals that sits and secure in a payroll 25 names in order for him to feed his family that is big in size. So even the salary structure of civil servant does not motivate them to become productive. So for me, it's a structural issue that we need to handle that. And I think there's no shortcut. And let me tell you, Awo is now in the ministry. He will never rescue the weakening of the SSP value against the US dollars. As we speak per now, some places is 187, some places 189, some places are 9, some places are $200 SSP 1000. Today, as we speak, there's a colleague of mine who changed this evening. He changed with the rate of 190, which is less than 3 or 4 hours from now. If you go right now at night, it may send you 200. So the SSP every day is losing its value. So for me, it's really having actual people. We have the economists. Unfortunately, our economies are not given the space. And also we have characters who are either not economists and claim to be economists. And they have a big junk responsibility. I'll give you one example. Devaluation of the SSP. I call it a ridiculous decision. The people who devalue, when I investigate them, they're not economists, but they are fixing things that the economists let the currency be devalued. So for me, it's a structural issue, and it is a multi-sector. It's not only a structural issue because of means of finance. It's a multi-sector issue in terms of the structure within the economic sector. So it's a multi-sector structural issue within the economy and the finance cluster. Look at our vice president for economic cluster, Dr. Waniga, who is a PhD holder on revenue. But look at the way how we miss proper revenue collections. We wish could have been one of the best cluster because that's his field. But unfortunately, we couldn't pursue anything because the systems, the structures are so badly hijacked by individuals that gain out of it more than the government. And citizens continue being hostage to suffer because of those individuals that have undermined the structural response to economy or strengthening of economy and finance sector. So for me, it's a structural issue that you can't sort it out by changing a minister. You need to sit down and do proper reforms in economic and finance sector you can rescue. And one of them is that don't use oil revenue for paying services or for buying services. Use oil revenue for strengthening production capacity of the state. And that's where the agriculture that they talk about. If you see our agricultural bank of South Sudan, it is too broke as if we don't have farmers. The building is too old since Basir's time or Sudan time. The staff who are inside there are very old people whom does not look at agriculture the model way we are in now. They themselves, the food insecure in a bank of which supposed to secure them food-wise. You sit in agricultural bank and you're food insecure, and you say, I'm a governor of agricultural bank, and you have to, instead of eating 3 meals, you're eating 2 meals? What is it? So it's a structural issue. Thank you.
It is. And this is very sad to see that the citizens are suffering. And this individual within the financial sector are holding the country hostage. And the president is silent. and they are talking about election. I don't know how this election will take place. And this is really is challenging and this will force citizens to go back to their old days, to go back home, doing agriculture work, farm, living your livestock, your cow, your goat, chicken, and those who are fishermen can go and live around Nile area, River Nile area, and then they can fish and live their life there.
Let me tell you a case, Abraham. Today morning, I was moving from home. I'm going to office. So I decided to jump on a matatu, a public bus. And the public bus, there are about 6 or 7 sacks of greens, vegetables. They're coming from the riverside and they're going to Juba town. And these guys who are taking their bari speakers, the owners, they're women. So payment of the tax fare was increased. So somebody was shouting on a shoot, "You people of matatus, why do you increase the tax fare of the bus? This tax fare is abnormal." Then the conductor say, "Dollar is high, dollar bigger fork, dollar bigger galley." Somebody say, even us jumping on this matatu, also you have to think about dollars. Then one of the women laughed that, "You see, on the matatu up there, we have our 6 sacks of vegetables. Those one we're going to sell them with dollar rate, because the people who hold dollars are in the V8s. Then they start counting the V8s. So when we're moving, they count about like 26 V8s. They say, why dollar is not galley if you have 26 V8s? So those greens of mine must take me to enter that V8. Imagine that's how mentally we are now shaping the economy. It's a complete issue of psychology, is a complete issue of really, really structural issue. Now, even people who are cultivating greens are coming from the village, say, let's take to the town to get the dollar so that we can buy cattle because the dollar is high there.
Can you
Imagine.
It's really sad if the government is allowed the dollars to run the country. The South Sudanese pound is pointless. It's meaningless. So, and that's why you're seeing the things are, and I don't know how they would fix it. It's really like engineering a war. Even though he come in, I don't know how he will handle these issues. It's still gone if the system is not fixed. So it is late now. I have a speech of engineering a war, the new Minister of Finance. I will play that. So I would like you to give us your closing remark. Then I will play that video, and then I will close the show. So go ahead, give us a closing remark. Thank you.
First, thank you very much for hosting me. My closing remarks will be that the election we are talking about is not easy if we don't come together as multiple of various South Sudanese actors, political parties, stakeholders, religious leaders, youth, women, persons with disabilities. We need to come together and reach a national consensus on the pathway to create a conducive environment for the conduct of the election by December 2024. And our political leaders, as they still per now, they have the mandate, they need to urgently join the dialogue and make critical political decisions that will inform the position of the international community when they are sitting on the 30th of April to make sure that we rescue our country. We are at fixed, but also we have the responsibility to fix our country. That's my first thing. In terms of the economy, it's a structural issues. I wish that the financial institutions, both in executive and legislative, will have time to sit down and review where are the structural weaknesses and the challenges that we have committed that we need to adjust to strengthen our economy. And remember, Sudan situation is unfolding, and Sudan situation have huge impact on our revenue that we generate through the oil. Over 70% of our revenue are coming from the oil sector now is affected. So now we need to discuss about the non-oil revenue system. How do we collect revenue out of it? And we need to collect it in a transparent and accountable manner where we adhere to standards of public finance management and public revenue management standards so that we can rescue the situation. Otherwise, we're getting disaster. And if these elections comes and found our save is broke, we don't have money in our save as a national government, these elections are likely to fight or they're likely to trigger violence. And likely this election will be manipulated by those who have money that they might have stored outside South Sudan. So for me, that's really my message. My appeal is that South Sudanese, let's be civic, so committed, let's follow everything, let's engage, let's talk, let's not remain silent, but let's not embrace violence. Let's embrace non-violence as a way of transferring power from one group, from one individual to another in an honorable and peaceful manner. That's the appeal I would like to make to every South Sudanese. But otherwise, let's remain active on the debate on the elections and the economy of the country. And I appreciate Lex Media to continue creating these platforms that we can exchange flow of information and sharing of information, and we learn from each other as we keep on speaking to each other as South Sudanese. Nobody can claim, I know everything all. We know through dialogue, we share experience through talking to each other, through justifying and convincing each other. South Sudan, we cannot build with isolation or with denial. And that's why, finally, I call for the government to declare open civic and political space for all South Sudanese to speak to each other, to build a nation they wish to build after the loss of millions of lives of South Sudanese for the independence that we enjoy today. We call it the Republic of South Sudan. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, brother Imuyakani. Thank you. We will talk again when you reach Nairobi about that event, and also to keep yourself put CSC on because it's so hot over there right now in Juba. So keep yourself hydrated, drink a lot of water, and thank you. I will see you for the next day. So thank you. Have a wonderful night. Thank you.
Yeah. Our Daniel, to make, with your permission, I do here to call upon my brother, engineer, our Daniel, to make his remark. You're welcome, our Daniel. Okay.
أولا أنا بشكر الحضور وعلى رأسهم Honorable Minister Potkan Chol, Minister of Petroleum, former Minister of Finance and Planning, my brother Dr. Bak, and Honorable Abang Maku, the Minister of Finance and Planning, Honorable Marwal Tap, the First Under Secretary of Finance, Planning, and then my brother Benjamin, and the Secretary for Planning, and then my brother Dr. Alich, James Alich, my brother Dr. William Manyak, and the Secretary, the Minister of Petroleum, all the DGs, all the staff of the Ministry of Finance. I'm so happy to be here with you today because I used to come to this ministry. It's not a new ministry to us. We know that Ministry of Finance and Planning and Petroleum, I used to call them two faces of the same coin because they work together. And if you know very well that the resources of this country that are developed today are 90% oil and gas. And this is where I come from. So basically, finance is 90% oil and gas. So it's not a surprise. I'm happy today because it's a surprise to me. It's a surprise. Because sometimes when you are surprised, your reaction will be like mixed, you don't even know. But I do believe that the leadership of this country under His Excellency Salva Kiir Mayardit, who trusted me to this position, is an assignment at this particular time. And I thank God for that. And as much as everyone is worried in my family, I'm equally concerned but I'm not worried. I'm not worried because it is not my responsibility alone. It is the responsibility of institutions. And this institution now that is heading the economy of South Sudan is Minister of Finance. So when you're talking about institution, you don't talk about a person. My role here is to come and work with you. And this is not the first time that I've been a minister. I've been a minister also briefly in petroleum, but I've worked as a civil servant for quite a long time. And I've run companies in Saudi Arabia, but not in Sudan. That was my first experience. The very first experience that I had in management was in Saudi Arabia. In Sudan, I was only junior for only less than 1 year. But after that, I worked in Saudi Arabia, and my brother, General Shengiti, both of you, Major General, he was with us in Saudi Arabia, so he knows very well what we used to do. On those days, I was very young. I think I became a manager of a company at the age of 27 in Saudi Arabia. At the age of 27, I became a manager. It was not a surprise, but because of hard work. And this is what we do better. And this hard work is not a work of an individual. It's a teamwork. Because we engineers, we believe in teamwork. And that's the success of our work. We work also in Sudan, in Sudan, with my colleague, Honorable Advisor Mohammed Hini Benjamin. He's seated behind there. So we have some cumulative experience of how things are managed and how teams are supposed to function. What we need in this country is for us to work as a team. No individual in this world can do anything alone. Even Albert Einstein, the biggest scientist that the whole world knows, he works with a team for him to achieve success. And most of his inventions are what people are benefiting from today. It's not a work of one man. So what I want to tell you, rest assured that my coming here, although it was not prepared for, but I'm sure my little contribution will enhance what you have already started. And I appreciate Dr. Bach for all the work that he has done. And these are things that are seen today. We'll take it from where he stopped. Because you cannot reinvent the wheel if the wheel is already there. If you reinvent the wheel, then you're wasting your time. You have to start where others have stopped and move on. Because for you to build anything, you start one block and then you add another one until you reach your destination. So I'm not worried about that. And we'll still have everybody to work with us in this institution and other government institutions in this country to support the leadership and to support this country through collective efforts, not individual efforts. All of you have talked very nice. And it seems that none of you has differed from the other, whether the way you diagnose the problem of South Sudan or the way you would want people to move forward. All of you have agreed to that. And these are very valuable advice to me. And I equally agree with all of what you have said, all of you, the former speakers. I'm not a stranger, and I'm aware of those challenges as well, just like yourselves. So what is the way forward? That is the question. I know that when a Minister of Finance is removed, or any other ministry or minister is removed from his position, it's just an assignment. Not because there's something wrong. It just happened that changes are frequent. And this is normal. I was one of those. And this is normal. And when you're removed or you're relieved from your position, does not mean that there's something wrong. These are normal changes. It happens, whether it is in a very short period of time or a long period of time. It just happened. But I can also advise people should stop making propaganda. When somebody is relieved today, then people try to attach so many things that are not even true. If we continue to do that, it's not a good thing. It's character assassination of a person. And that's not a good thing, because eventually it will develop into a culture. And this is one of the worst things in communities, in societies. For us to be an advanced society, we need to appreciate. We need to thank. Even somebody who did little, you must say thank you. Because when you do, tomorrow you'll even do better somewhere else. But let us not start attacking, trying to assassinate the character for no reason. And especially this is done mostly by our young people. I've not seen an elderly doing that. Let us refrain from doing that for this country to move forward. Because by doing so, you will instill fear in everyone who is working. And this fear will not allow you to do what you're supposed to do, simply because it has become a problem. So that's my little advice. On South Sudan economy, I think on my own way, the way I understand it, we have not been able to raise enough resources to run the government. There has always been deficit. And we used to work in collaboration with the Ministry of Finance. We used to attend even IMF and World Bank meetings. And I know the challenges that they are going through. And I happen personally to be one from the Ministry of Petroleum representing most of those, the Ministry of Petroleum in those meetings. So I know the challenges that the ministry is going through. It's not a fault of a person. It just happened that we have shortages of resources, and the resources that are developed in South Sudan is oil. And even if the oil is running, we still have a deficit. And that is true. And I know this very well. I know the figures. The deficit is so huge. When you make our budget, we just put it, but it doesn't cover anything at all. The NRA, when they started to do their work, they did very well as well. But they also need time. They need facilitation. They need to be empowered for them to do their work and for the institution to function efficiently. It is not their fault. It is our collective responsibility to understand what are their needs. And it is our responsibility to give them a chance to do whatever they want to do to improve things. The central bank, equally, is having difficulties. And these are not their problems. These are the problems of the country, so we must understand this. Because if we trade blames and accusations, you will not find a solution. Let us be honest and see what is the problem. For us, we say, let us troubleshoot in an engineering language, so that you understand what is the problem, so that you can fix bolts and nuts, and nothing will fall apart as a result of that. So this diagnosis is very important for everyone to understand. And for people who are educated, they should also sensitize our population that these are the challenges we are facing, and it is our challenge, all of us, and we must face it head on, all of us, for this country to develop and for this country to move forward. We cannot be talking about survival all the time. Now we're just surviving. We wanted this country to move forward. People must go to work. And for you to work, it doesn't need Ministry of Petroleum or Finance or Central Bank or NRA or NGOs that everyone will want to work in those places. There are other sectors. And of course, we also understand the challenges, especially our business community. Now the market is almost controlled by foreigners. And that's the reason our foreign exchange is being drained. It is simply because of that. We are not productive. So let us start to be productive. It's not going to be just a word. It's a policy direction. Yesterday, in our swearing in, that was the direction, the directives given to us by His Excellency the President, that let us solve the current crisis. And then, once we settle, we now move on to look for sustainable solutions. Because if we solve this crisis tomorrow, that's not the end. Another one will come. It may even be worse than this. So let us embrace for that. These are facts. So that every one of us must feel that responsibility. It's a huge one for all of us. No blame to an individual. We need to work in that spirit. And the low-hanging fruits in those kind of development have been said by my colleagues earlier on. The quickest thing that can help us is agriculture. But we'll not be talking about agriculture without implementing the plans that have been put in place. So our role now is to make sure that we put whatever little we have. We don't need to wait for billions. Just little. Just little and start something. And if you have started, then you will not stop. But if you continue to talk about plans that are not implemented and plans that are not even done, this is not a good thing. So we must plan properly. Because we know that failing to plan is a very big disaster. If you fail to plan, then you fail everything. You have written your failure because you are not planning. And that's why this ministry is key for planning of South Sudan. It's here in this institution. So it's a very important institution that we should work. We put all our heads together, all our talents together, and make sure that we move this country forward through quick implementation of quick impact projects that can help us out of this situation. And then we continue to do that until we are able to stop some of the imports, or we do import substitution. We have to substitute some of these imports, and especially the critical commodities or the essential commodities like food. People have been talking about food, and this is number one. Fuel, and then drugs. These are the things that we should focus on so that anyone will find it in the market. If somebody doesn't get Pepsi Cola or whatever, you will not die. Or if you don't get wine or cigarettes, you will not die. Or even V8, you will not die. But if you don't get food, you don't get medicine, then you are in trouble. And these are the priorities that we should put whatever we get. We will not say that we have a lot, because we have nothing, but we have to look for it, like advised by my colleagues earlier on. This situation now is so dire. We wanted to knock the doors, like advised by our head of the state, His Excellency the President, so that we rescue this situation. And the first thing we do is to start something little. It's not big. Just to show everybody that we are starting, because when you start, it will go. The oil that we rely on today has been formed 65 million years ago. Then it can be consumed in 100 years. But if you do agriculture today, you can consume it in 3 months. So you can see the difference now. Every seed of a crop can generate not less than 100 seeds. So you can see the impact of this. So oil and gas and petroleum in South Sudan is so scarce. It's limited. So we should use it as a seed for development. And food security is number one. Because if you consume your seed, then you will not have any harvest at all. So it looks that we are consuming the seed. And maybe Mohamedino can tell you how long are we going to have this oil. If you don't do more, if you don't invest more, we will not have it in few years to come. This is the time for us to do what we didn't do before. And this is the time that everybody should understand that the responsibility is a collective one, not a person. The world is moving as well towards energy transition, and the requirement for that. Even in South Sudan, we don't have a plan for that yet. The whole world is moving towards energy transition, and we have something called net zero in 2050. 2050 is not far from now, and we don't have one plan. When we plan that, the little resources that we have today, we can put them into lasting values, into sustainable development. And this is exactly what His Excellency promised us directed us yesterday, that let us produce food sustainably. So this time around, our theme should be producing food sustainably. It doesn't need to be big. We start it and then we move forward. We move on with that. These are all challenges, and we need to understand how to address them. I'm not here to tell you that we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I don't have a magic stick. I'm not better than Dr. Obak or whoever has been there before. I'm not better than them. But it happened that I'll be one of you. And all of those who used to be here before, they will be one of us. We work together, including the Minister of Petroleum. Because if you don't work together, it will not be the problem of Bak or myself or Podcam. It will be a problem of South Sudan. And therefore, working together is what will help us. And also trying to address the challenges, especially issues to do with transparency, issues to do with accountability. These are very important things. Because when we move out there, we want to get some loans or whatever, it's very difficult. Who made it difficult? It is us who made it difficult for ourselves. We need to ease this. Work with IMF, with World Bank, with QNB, with African Development, with all those institutions. At difficult times, you can be bailed out. But we need to respect our commitments. When you respect your commitments today, tomorrow it will pay. It will pay back. This is the direction that we are going to take. It has already been started by my colleagues, and we're going to continue with the same. Building a nation starts today, and then it continues like that. As it started earlier on, since creation, it has been evolving until it becomes the way it is today. So the responsibility is so big, and we are ready to work it out together in the spirit of teamwork, in the spirit of solidarity, so that we move this country together forward. We help our people, and then now we create a lot of opportunities. The resources we have, like people say, are so many, but we need to diversify. Once we finish with this agriculture, we move to other mineral resources. And I'm so fond of talking about minerals, but not gold. I'm not talking about gold, because when people talk about minerals, they think it's gold. It's not gold alone. Gold is one thing, but there are so many minerals that are more than gold in this country. And these are industrial minerals that we can use. And for us to do this, there are a lot of things that we have to do. So if we talk about the development of South Sudan, we can talk for days. But we don't want to tell you that we will do this, we will do this. No, we will not say that. All of us start from today. Put our heads together. Move around. Try to address this situation. When we relax, then we can start our plans. Because you cannot be talking about building something today and people are hungry. And people are thirsty. You need to address this one first, as quick as possible. We don't know whether we're going to succeed or not, but we have to knock the doors of friends, of partners, so that we come out from this situation. I'm not going to say anymore, but I would like to thank you and assure you that all of us will be working together in the spirit of the team, and we'll work to make sure that we come out from this situation, and then we learn from this experience. Coming out from the situation is something, and learning from it is another thing. If we learn from this, I'm sure we'll not be hit by any problem if we learn. But if we don't learn, then we'll have problems recurring all the time. My brother talked about gum arabic. It is true. We can do that. We can do sesame. But first, we need to make sure that we have access to the market. And we need to have also access to low transportation facilities. This is very important because you have to compete. It is not up to you. When you transport a cargo from here and it costs you very high, even if it goes to the entire market, nobody will buy because your price is not going to be competitive. Even if your quality is good, but still your price is not competitive. So these are some of the issues that we need to address as we move on. But it's a genuine resource that can help us because it is ready. But what is the challenge is only the roads. And I'm sure we in the Ministry of Petroleum, we started to work on the road with Honorable Minister to Padak and Africana Monday, even send some vehicles for NRA. Because when we talk about NRA, we don't talk about Nimuli alone. There are so many places that we have to unlock. These are potentials that can add more to the little we have. Even if you get something little, 10% out of this is better than nothing. We built 50 kilometers in the Ministry of Petroleum. It was supposed to be paid by finance, they didn't pay. Maybe they didn't understand the significance of that road. But our intention is to make sure that we improve the logistics of oil and gas, and at the same time, we encourage the agriculture in Northern Upper Nile, especially in Rang, so that we can export sesame, we can export gum arabic, and maybe sunflower. So instead of us using the road for imports, we'll be using the road for export for the first time, I'm sure. So that is a critical corridor for South Sudan. The other corridor is the river transportation. For some of those who know, the river transportation is a potential, but it has not been unlocked. We need to unlock those potentials. There are so many. And I'm telling you this because you have to go and think about it. You'll find that these are real potentials for us to add more resources for collection. And by having those, I'm sure we will not be talking about deficit. And the target should be to reach a level where the minister said earlier on that from the NRA, we are supposed to pay chapter 1 and chapter 2. When we get the oil and gas or minerals, it will be for development and investment. We can invest this money inside South Sudan to develop some of the projects that will add value. And there are projects that can generate money. And the government also needs to invest because government is about business. That's the way I understand it. Government is not only to regulate, is to regulate and for business as well. Because for you to put the benchmark for everything, you must create model projects for that. Tomorrow you not complain. The traders are doing this, they are doing that. You have to get the benchmark by investing in some model schemes. And this model scheme does not mean that you will do everything. No, you don't need to. Just contribute little in order for you to set the benchmark for those. And by having those together, let us go and crack our minds. And let us come with plans of how do we implement these things. They'll come just one by one. It may not be in 5 years or even 10 years, but we have to start them. Whatever we can have today, little, we'll put it into this, and we move forward. Because for us to bridge the budget deficit, it is only investment that can help us in that. We should not bridge the gap between our deficit, between our budget and through loans, because you are adding more. Because loans will come with interest at the same time. You don't want that. Even if it is very little, but it's still a lot of money. So we have heat wave. I'm not going to talk a lot. I think I've already talked a lot. But let us work together. It is not difficult if we believe that we can do it. If we believe it. But if you don't believe it, you will fail. I myself believe. I believe that we can do it. But it requires patience. It will take a long time. I will not even finish anything. But I will start some of what my brother has started and my other colleagues. And whoever will come after 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 1 year, it doesn't matter. But he'll find something that has been added on the top of what he has done. With this, I would like to thank you.
In Juba, Malatori, hey, I'm yo, in Bing William, in Benti, Walla Quadu, hey, wow, in Bing William, in Malkal, Walla Pinaram, in Bing William.